everybody. TGIF. The grind includes Friday. So it is not just, thank God it's Friday. It is the grind includes Friday. And guys, I'm so excited. I am here with my friend Mark. Oh my goodness, Mark, we've known each other for a little while and we just kind of like jumped into each other's lives and I am so excited. Um,
Yeah, me
so
too.
yes, yeah, I'm so glad that you're here, friend. We're gonna have so much fun. And then if anybody is watching live, of course, drop a message, drop a comment, show us some love. We love it. I love this. He is the first, he's never like done one of these interviews before, but I'm excited because he's getting out of his comfort zone. Can we just like pause for a minute and think about what that means to break out of your comfort zone and do something that puts you in the position of winning?
hmm
Like, yes.
There's a quote, I don't know who it's from, but it's the cave that you fear to enter is the cave that holds the treasure. So that's been
Right, I
really
love
helpful
that.
for me as I've, started my journey in this consulting business and getting out of my comfort zone. I mentioned earlier, I have a background in IT, 15 years of corporate IT, and it was just easy to be in my office. Wouldn't have to interact with people too often until I got into management. And that was a little out of my comfort zone. In fact, I hated it, but I had to do that. But I could just go to my office and I wouldn't have to talk to anybody, and I could just work on my machines and fix problems that way. But that wasn't my purpose. So yeah, this is good. This has been a really good journey, and we'll get into it in a little bit here.
Absolutely. There was another quote that says, on the other side of fear is the greatness.
Yeah.
And I've been also like thinking about that one a lot too. Like, okay, if I get over this fear, like, so what is waiting for me on the other side? So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, okay. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about your background a little bit in your IT world. And then you said we kind of like just jumped right into it. That's usually how I like to do these things is um I like just to jump right in. Just
Sure.
yeah, because there's gonna be so many golden nuggets here. I know it. So you said that you felt like you were calling that you had like a calling for something else as you were transitioning in your IT world.
Well, this was actually in 2006, 2007. There was just days I would get up and just not want to go to work. And I mean, I'm sure we've all experienced that, especially those in the corporate world. If you don't like your job, you don't like what you're doing. I liked what I was doing, but I just didn't feel like I was solving big enough problems. But I didn't want to solve bigger IT problems. I wanted to solve bigger people problems. And I just didn't know it at the time. I didn't know how I could help people in a different way and make a living out of it. So I looked into some different options. And just a quick note, I never went to college for what I did in IT. It was just a gift. It was a God-given gift. And ever since I was like 13 or 14 and started to tinker with computers and fix things, it just came naturally. And I know that by the time that I graduated high school and I was looking at different college options, I'm like, I'm just going to go do this thing. And so, I just continued to advance my career every couple of years, and I worked my way up to IT manager. So that was in 2016, I believe, is when I joined on with the company here where I live as the IT manager. But go back to 2006, 2007, there was just something there. So I started looking at other options. Well, what could I do? Well, everything required, 2 to 4 to 8 years of college, and I looked at the cost of what I would need to pay to go to college and then come out, and I would be making the same amount that I was making in IT. So it was kind of that money thing that kept me there. I'm like, well, that seems really pointless. I'm like, I'll just keep grinding it out. I'll just keep doing, just doing the thing that I feel like I should do, not what I wanted to do, but I guess I didn't know what I wanted to do at that point.
I love that. I think so many of us get stuck inside the I should or I have to mode. And then we kind of forget like what we actually wanted to do with our lives and where our dreams were and where our hopes were and everything. So yeah.
Mhm.
So ah, you said there was like a day where enough was enough and then you knew that you had to take action. What did like that first step of action look like for you?
So I knew in 2018 that I was going to quit my job that year. And it was something my wife and I had talked about before that because she wanted me to do what I wanted to do. She wanted me to be doing something I love to do. I'll just straight up say it, real talk. I was depressed. I was depressed for many years, and it sucked. And I hated going to that job as an IT manager. I absolutely hated it. But I just kept doing it because that's what you're supposed to do, right? Like, that's what you're told, you have to do this thing. So I kept doing it. And, my wife, she was looking at, different things too for me to help me out. And she researched a bunch of stuff. I mean, we were praying for wisdom, we were praying for guidance, we were praying for help, and we started to get answers. And so I say I knew the beginning of 2018 something was going to happen. I didn't know when, but I did. And I really didn't have a plan. My wife, she picked up some extra hours at the spa that she worked at. And she was a massage therapist at the time. And we sold our pickup and we made ends meet. And then it was towards the end of that year into 2019, I started my own IT business, and things were great because I could do what I really wanted to do. I could, put my own philosophy into my business and how I wanted to run it. And that's when I started to really get into self-development. I started to listen to Earl Nightingale and, some of those leaders, some of those pioneers in the self-development field. And that started to get me thinking again. And I knew I had set out to start my IT business. Like, I need to do this thing. I started to get clients. I had to support them. I grew that big enough to bring on my business partner, amazing guy. Shout out to Sean Palmer. And he's really helped this thing be what it is today. But then there was still something else that was pulling at me, and that wasn't until 2020 is when I attended a seminar with Proctor Gallagher. It's called The Science of Getting Rich, and that changed my world. So I knew there was something bigger for me.
That's awesome. Okay, so then with all of this, and then you knew there was a change coming and everything. So of course I got to ask, because you started your
Mhm.
deep dive and your self-development as soon as 2020 hit. So what did that look like for you in the realm of 2020 and then like everything like shutting doors? Can we travel down that path? Because I'm really
Mhm.
curious on how that like affected you.
Yeah, so I was on a road trip to one of my clients about 3 hours away from where I live, and I was listening to some self-development speaker. I don't remember who that was. I think it was Earl Nightingale, or it was somewhere in that space, but they were talking about nothing comes for free in life. Like, you have to put in the effort, but you also have to have faith that it's going to work out. Well, I believe that. And so this was at the time non-essential businesses were closing their doors, and my wife, she worked at the body spa that was considered non-essential. So, we'd be losing that income. And so she called me as I was driving, and she's like, "Hey, Tara called from the spa, and she said that if I quit now, we're not eligible for the unemployment checks." So I'm like, "Okay, like, let's think about this." I mean, this was just after I heard that nothing comes for free. So I'm like, "Okay, look, I don't want to be too proud to ask for help, but I'm like, what if we just believe this is going to work out with my IT business, and we let somebody else have those checks? Like, if there's somebody else that needs that more, let's just do it." So I'm like, "You go ahead and quit." And she was ready to quit too. I mean, massage is hard on massage therapists, and she was done with it. She wanted something different too. So I'm like, now's the time to do it. Let's just do it. I feel like our prayers have been answered, and so we did it, and everything worked out.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Like the end. That was fun. That was
That was
really great to know you. That
it.
was a great story. No, that was amazing. So then, okay, as 2020 hit, and then also you were looking into what we're going to be talking about today is you were looking into being a coach, correct? So then,
I wasn't looking into it yet. So
okay.
when I joined that seminar with Bob Proctor, that was his last live seminar that he did before he passed. So talk about awesome timing for me. And
Yeah.
it was just presented that idea that you could do whatever you want to do. Like, you can find your purpose and you can do it. And it was, don't reject anything, but don't accept everything. So we go into this seminar. That was like the first thing I heard starting this 4 day, like 8 hours a day seminar, was that. And I just absorbed everything. And I'm get a little emotional talking about it because they just opened the doors to my mind. And then it's just too good.
Yeah.
They started talking about gratitude in a different way that I never looked at it before. Just changed my world. So yeah, like, started in with that, and we took the gratitude piece and we incorporated it into our lives. Like, we made it a daily practice to do 10 things that we're grateful for every day. And I started doing it with my parents and with my brother and his family. Like, every day we would get on a Zoom call, and just do that because, well, it was 2020, you know, everything was shut down. And that was our way. And it just got us through a lot of stuff. And so that seminar was life changing. So it wasn't, it was like a year after that. Like I started to join some more of their events, you know, as they started to do some more live events. And I just kept hearing the same message. It's just like, what do you want? You know, what do you want to do? What do you want in your life? And you can attract this into your life. You can attract anything you want into your life. You just have to think a different way. So there was just one event that I attended. They were talking about, you know, like you can become a Procter Gallagher consultant. Like, you know, like here's all the things that you learn, and here's all the information that you'll get because of it, and you can help others do this same thing. And so I started to think about that. I'm like, well, what does this mean for me? Because I just started my IT business, and I had kind of what I thought big goals and dreams with that. And so one of the events that I attended, I just happened to get in touch with my success advisor, who turned into my mentor later, and just started to talk with her and get on calls with her. And then I committed to it. It was what was that, 2024? I think that was the end of 2022, October 2022. I decided to join then as a Procter Gallagher consultant, and I just dove into the material and I just started to learn. I just started to study. I started to do the workbooks. I had to go through it as a client first, so I needed to become a product of the product before I could sell it. And talk about a paradigm shift and getting out of my comfort zone, because then I had to start, you know, presenting myself in a different way, telling people what I did in that regards. And that was hard because the paradigm just pulls you backwards. You know, like you try to change it, you try to put new ideas into your belief system, into your habits, into your ideas that are in your head, into your subconscious mind, just pulls you backwards. So I'd make progress and then I just get pulled right back into my IT business, because that's where I was like easy, right? Like I could go do this thing. I didn't have to really think about it. I knew the people I could talk to, and I wouldn't tell people what I was doing. It took a long time to overcome that. But I followed my own training. I just kept going through it, repetition, repetition, repetition. And through that repetition, I started to change. I started to change my self-image. I started to grow in that regards. And then I noticed my conversations with people would change. You know, we'd go to kids' birthday parties and like, hey, how's work going? I was like, oh, I'm starting this new thing, you know. And then I would explain it. And then I would get people be like, oh, that sounds really interesting. That sounds really cool. And that would just kind of, you know, add to the fire a little bit, and I'd get more excited about it. But then I'd hit something and it just pushed me right back. I was just like, couldn't seem to get past a certain point. Well, that's in one of our lessons. It's called the terror barrier. So you start introducing a new idea into your paradigm, it gets exciting, but then you step out to do it, you hit that barrier. And if you hit that terror barrier and you bounce back, it's like you have to start all over again. So it's persistence, persistence, persistence. And I just kept doing the routines. I kept doing the affirmations. I kept doing my morning routine. And we can get into the morning routine. We can talk about that because it's really important. And slowly and surely, as my belief system started to change, then the people that came into my life changed too. And then I started to get clients. And so then
Isn't that
then I
amazing? Like,
knew I could do it. Yeah.
yes, yes. And isn't it amazing? Like, I think that's like what takes the business people, like they feel like it takes years, to build a business. I think that's part of it. I think if it's because, part of it is implementing, talking about it, and then walking it out, and then also like hitting the wall and then bouncing back. So, like, I think that's like part of why it takes so long to get to where we're going. And yeah, oh my goodness, I loved all of that.
Yeah. What a journey. Yeah. It's been, and that's what they say, right? We want to enjoy the journey towards our goal. Like it's not just about getting to the goal, it's about enjoying the journey. So that helps a ton. When you love what you do and you love helping people, then you can enjoy that journey towards your goal. While we're talking about that, I'll just introduce the stick figure. This is one of our learning tools that we
Yes.
have. So this is a representation of the mind. And on the top, we have the big circle. This represents the mind. The small circle represents the body. Now, mind is in every cell of the body. So for this representation, though, we'll just use that this is the mind. And on the top circle, we have the conscious mind. This is our thinking mind, our intellectual mind. With this, we can accept or reject ideas. We can think anything we want. And then on the bottom part is the subconscious mind. And this is where our paradigms live. This is 95% of our habitual behavior comes from the subconscious mind. And what we're emotionally involved with is what lives here, and that dictates the vibration of our body. The law of vibration states everything vibrates, nothing rests. Everything is moving. So our body is in a state of vibration. So whatever we're emotionally involved with is the vibration of our body, and that's what we do. And so if we have a poor self-image and we don't believe in what we're setting out to do, we're not going to do that thing. We're only going to do what we believe. So that's why if we want to change the subconscious mind, we have to feed it different information. So you think of paradigms, these are formed. This is where the paradigm lives, is in the subconscious mind. So that's habits, beliefs, and ideas. Where do those come from? Well, those come through the conscious mind. Those come through our five senses. We can see, smell, hear, taste, and touch. That's how we're programmed to live from birth. So when we're born, when we're born, all we have is this bottom part. We just have the subconscious mind. Everything just goes into that subconscious mind as a child. We have no ability to accept or reject the ideas of our parents or society around us. So that
Huh.
information goes in, goes in, goes in, and then about 4, 5, 6 years old, you start to see a child starts to have their own way. They want to do things their way because the conscious mind has started to form, and they can think now, and they can accept and reject ideas.
So is that where the whole personality thing comes in at that age?
It's a lot of it because a lot of it's passed through genetics from our ancestors, a
Huh.
lot of the ideas and a lot of the things we do. So if you start thinking about that a little bit, spend a little time and think about it, why do you do the things you do? And so
That's
for me,
interesting.
I had a very poor self-image. I don't blame my parents for that. They didn't know this, but I became aware of it and I became aware of a way to change it. So with my conscious mind, I started to think something different. So one of the things we learned in our training was affirmations or autosuggestions. And by the way, if you're an entrepreneur and you don't have the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, you need to get the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill and read that. Bob Proctor based pretty much a majority of his study and his work off of Earl Nightingale and Napoleon Hill. And Think and Grow Rich is the book that Bob bases the course that I teach, Thinking into Results, off of that book. The book talks about autosuggestions and how does that work? Well, with an autosuggestion or an affirmation, we come up with a statement with our conscious mind, and we want to change a bad idea or a bad habit in the subconscious mind. So we write down a negative idea or a habit that we want to change, and then we come up with an affirmation. And Bob's format is, I am so happy and grateful now that. So let's say that I have a poor sales self-image or a poor sales paradigm. So I am not good at sales. So then I change that and I say, I am so happy and grateful now that I am good at sales. And in order to serve somebody, I have to first sell them. So then I just repeat that idea over and over. And as I say that with my conscious mind, that starts to change the subconscious mind, which changes my vibration. And I do things differently.
Can that work like not with a business thing? Because I was thinking of my children and they like to chew on their fingernails. Can I like use that with my children then and be, I am so grateful I stopped chewing on my fingernails so that way I can paint them with my mommy.
Yes.
Like,
I've used this
really?
with the kids with wetting the bed, use this with changing their habits with school. I mean, it really works for everything, and it sounds like a kind of a crazy idea, but just try it. And that's what I did. I started to try it, and things started to change. And it takes time because when you have years and years of living a certain way, doing things a certain way, you have to change those. And we've learned there's two ways to change what's in the subconscious mind. One of those is a big emotional impact, and usually that's something very negative that happens in the world. COVID was a good example. That changed a lot of paradigms, and a lot of things changed because of that. Now there are some things that came from that I feel are very good. There are some things that are very beneficial to what I do in my life that would not have come if it wasn't for COVID. So I try to look at that in a different perspective. The other way is through constant spaced repetition. So it's saying the same thing over and over again. It's doing the same thing over and over again. That starts to change that paradigm in the subconscious mind, and then we do things different. So start thinking of ways that you can do things different, and then create those different affirmations, create those different things, and you'll start to see changes in your life. Usually, I mean, you start to see changes almost right away because you're aware of what you're saying and what you're doing. The trick is consistency, being able to do it for a month, being able to do it for 2 months, because you get distracted and you kind of forget maybe to do the thing, and then after 2 or 3 weeks you realize, oh, I'm not doing my affirmations anymore, and I don't like the results I have in my life anymore. So you just repeat, repeat, repeat.
Oh my goodness, I love that. Because yeah, the other day, I woke up and I had some news that kind of bombed me out, and then I had to go back in to myself, and I'm like, okay, I can't control the situation. There's nothing that I can do. This news really upset me, and how can I shift that? So like when you are saying these certain things that I've heard of before, of course, it definitely makes me rethink and want to reuse and re-dive in.
Mhm.
That was beautiful.
A big financial commitment to join Procter Gallagher as a consultant. And so we talked about it, but she's just like, well, if you're going to do this thing, do it. Because if you find your purpose and you find what you love to do, the price is unlimited to pay to go do that thing, because the reward will be fulfilling for the rest of your life. So she understood that. And so she said, go for it.
What has been your favorite part of the journey so far?
Learning more about myself and learning how to change my self-image and to be more confident. If we would have done this interview a year ago, I would have been talking so fast and stumbling over every single word. It wouldn't have made any sense. Like, I've learned to really just calm down and slow down, like slow my thinking down and trust that the answers will come. So one of my old paradigms, my self-talk was, I always forget everything. It's just what I told myself over and over. And I guess I should tell the whole story. In high school, I had a terrible head injury. It was very traumatic. It almost killed me. It broke a vertebrae in my neck, and it changed me. Like, I mean, it changed the way that I think. It changed the way that I stored information. It was in this back part of my head, which is part of our memory storage. And so mom told me 3 years ago, 4 years ago at Thanksgiving, like we were talking about it. She's like, your eyes changed after that accident. She's like, you were never the same. I never heard her tell me that before. And that almost crushed me 4 years ago. I'm like, well, who could have I have been? Like what kind of person would I have been if I wouldn't have had that accident? But my wife and I have talked about it a lot, because if it wasn't for that accident, we wouldn't have came across a lot of the healing modalities that we practice now that have helped. So, but I would always use that as a crutch. I would use that my self-talk, right? I don't remember things very well, so I'm not going to try to go do this thing that requires me to take a test or whatever. And that is also what led me to quitting my job, was a part of that, because of just migraine headaches and really memory retention. Like I told my boss kind of in my exit interview, like it's almost like I had to relearn things sometimes coming back to work, because work was so stressful. And you know how it is when you're stressed and you're anxious, your thoughts don't come easily. And then on top of not feeling good, it was just that constant struggle. And so then as I started to learn more information about what I teach and what I do through affirmations or self-talk, I started to tell myself a different story. And so one of the things that I wrote, I don't know how many times I wrote it. I am so happy and grateful now that I remember what I need to remember when the time comes. And I just started remembering things. Like, I remember books when I read books now. I remember movies when I watch movies. I used to like watch a movie, I couldn't tell you about it the next day. Like, I don't know, like I'd enjoy it. So it was just like so different. So I went from being completely hopeless to telling people that story about how I felt miserable all the time to a new identity. And why do we do that? Well, we like to hold on to that because it's familiar. And that's why I think it's so hard for so many people to change and heal and grow, is because they like that old familiar story. They don't want to change in their paradigm. This subconscious part of us just keeps feeding us that information, and it's easier not to change. So that's that was a lot of the story that I told myself. So I just started to change that. And then that's really when things started to change in my life too, with my business and my interactions with people and just everything else in life.
Oh my goodness. And then when you were talking about your healing, we're also in a mastermind together, and I'm super excited you put that class together, by the way. Um, but you were talking about like different healing and different strategies and stuff, and I was wondering, can we touch on that here just like a little bit and how
Yeah,
you're
different.
helping some of your close friends?
Yeah, so my wife and I learned a healing modality called Body Talk. And so we
Mhm.
took the Body Talk Fundamentals class, and it's based on um, boy, that we could talk about this for a while. So we have the body mind, right? Like, I mean, we have spirit, mind, and body. And so much of the medicine that we use only focuses on the physical. So we're trying to just heal and fix the physical when healing actually comes from the top down. Healing comes from spirit to mental to our physical. And this was actually so this representation of the mind was Dr. Thurman Fleet in 1934. He was a chiropractor, and I believe he was a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And so he stated, until we learn to heal the mind, we're not going to heal the body. Like we have to understand the mind and heal the mind. Well, I think we can take that a step further, as we have to start from spirit. And so learning to heal from the top down has been a big change in that. So, okay, my neck and my head hurt. Yes, like this is a physical problem, and we have to maybe fix this physically so I can get better mentally. But then if we can start to use these other modalities. So with Body Talk, it uses the body's innate wisdom. And you have you heard of applied kinesiology, like muscle testing?
No.
Have you ever been to, like, some chiropractors do the muscle testing? So it's just based off a yes no system. So you have a whole chart with everything in the body mind that you
Yes.
ask yes. And so you build these formulas, you ask these yes no questions. And so it could be, something's out with an endocrine or an organ isn't working right. So you establish this formula and then you tap it out with the head, the heart, and the gut. The head is to facilitate, the heart is to remember, and then the gut is to digest it. So there's a lot we could talk about to really understand this. And it's based on quantum physics and quantum healing. So we could go really deep into it. But that helped me tremendously. That was one of the things that helped. And my wife, she started to research what's called molecular hydrogen water. You'll have to look that up sometime. That was another piece to our journey that we started to get answers for. So, like, all these little pieces started to change. Like, we started to ask for help, right? We started to pray and ask for help, and we started to get answers. And so that was one of them.
I
So
love
now
that.
I'm practicing the Body Talk because I do want to get certified in that someday, and mix it in with my consulting business, because it really goes hand in hand when it comes to our journey and life.
Absolutely. And you keep on talking about the spirit. So I want to ask you, how is God working in your business and through you to reach out to help other people?
So it's really when I started to ask those questions, praying for wisdom. In James, I think James 1 and 5, and I can't quote this, so I'll have to read this. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. And in Matthew, it says, "Ask and it shall be given; seek and ye shall find; knock and it shall be opened." So I just started to explore those options and ask. And I think I was scared to do that because, we don't want to ask selfishly and make it all about us. We want to ask in a way that we can bring more of ourselves to the table to help and to serve others. And that's where the true joy is, in serving others. So I started to do
Yes,
that.
and it
Like I can't help you if I can't help myself. So I really started to dig into that and go deeper into the scriptures and where God helps. God's very interested in you, and he's very interested in me and what we're doing. And so I started to incorporate that into my work and my life a lot differently than I ever used to. And that's made a huge difference.
yeah, and I don't know about you, but like when people start asking, like, what do you want in life? And it's like, well, I have everything I want. I have everything I need, so it was really hard to like stop and think and be like, okay, I don't need to go on all these trips. I don't need to go do all that. Like, what do I want? And it just feels very selfish and very needy. And then some people are like, well, you're not humble because you want bigger things. And it's like, it's not that I'm not humble. It's that I've been searching and looking, and these are the answers that are coming into my vision. And I'm able to use my talents to also bring other people to God. So do you feel that way too? I'm
Yeah,
really curious on
definitely.
your journey with that.
Yeah, because that was one of the first things we heard in that seminar, The Science of Getting Rich, is what do you want? And to take a piece of paper and just start writing down what you want. And I'm like, well, I was kind of that same way. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I've never done that before. That sounds weird. Like, that doesn't sound like that's something I should do. Because I was always that same thing. I always taught, well, you shouldn't want more because you already have what you need. And what about others that don't have what they need? Well, I can't give to others if they don't have what they need, I can't give to them if I don't have more. So if I have more and I can bring more of myself to the table, then I can give more. And
We're not
so,
talking about like, collecting more diamonds and collecting more gold or more pearl necklaces. Like,
right,
like we're
right.
talking about like just knowledge and wisdom and everything. Because like right now, like you're blessing this live that we're doing with so much knowledge that you filled yourself up with, and now your cup is running over, and you're like, let me just scream it from the rooftops.
We can share this. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So I started writing down what I want. And so, I mean, if I were to pull out my journal, a lot of my wants was to help my parents, in retirement. Like if they need help financially, if they need help with anything, to help my in-laws, to help, my family, to help others if they don't have enough. And then I started to get into other things. Well, who is me? What do I like? What kind of cars do I like? What kind of house do I want? And, because that really is a reflection of the person within. And one of the things that we heard on that based off of the paradigm and what we believe and who we are as a person, if we're a good person and we gain more, it's only going to magnify that good. If we're a bad person, it's going to be the same thing. And where does the spotlight usually shine on wealth with individuals? It usually portrays the bad person, like the wealthy, the person who's wealthy is bad. I know a lot of very wealthy people that are good people, and they do a lot for the community and they do a lot for others. And there's a lot of Christians that I work with here in my area that are starting to feel and believe that same thing and bettering themselves in their businesses so they can help more. And I'll just touch on that. The Science of Getting Rich seminar, when I did that, I thought the name was strange. Like I didn't understand that, but I realized that riches isn't just money. Riches is everything. It's relationships, it's when we can have a rich relationship with our creator. So that really helped change my paradigm around that as well.
No, exactly. Because I feel like this conversation right now is rich and it's not, yeah, I absolutely love this. I get exactly what you're saying. It's not about necessarily the money. Like the word rich, I think is associated so much with money and so much with the fast cars and the huge mansions. And it's like, it's not about that. Like I want like a rich conversation. I want a rich friendship. I want knowledge, I love this intellectual conversation that stimulates you throughout the day. Exactly. And then also I heard, like if you're bad, like when you're broke, like if you're like a horrible person when you're broke, if you stumble into money or finally like you get into money, but you don't change who you are on the journey, you're gonna be like a bad person with money
Yeah,
too. So like,
exactly.
yeah, money just like you said, it just magnifies it more and people like more like honed in on it, you
Hmm.
know. When did you get certified to being a coach and how many people have you coached and are coaching?
I'm still on the path to certification. Very close. That's going to happen in the next probably 3 to 6 months. Yeah, very exciting. But I've done, I don't know, 20, like I feel like 20 is a number, like a well-rounded number right now for the people that I've taken through the program just because I wanted to practice it. So I did it for my immediate family and I wanted to show my parents what I was doing. So, and that was good for me to start to use my voice more and, try to teach, try to train, facilitate these lessons. So they went through it. Mom, she loved it. She came back and did it again. And so then I invited my oldest brother. He was going through a difficult challenge in his life. And I'm like, just come to my office. Like every Wednesday for 12 weeks, just come to my office. We'll sit down. We'll do the lessons together. We'll do the workbook together. But like lesson 4 or 5, like his whole life had changed. And he was like finally moving on and doing things that he had been putting off doing. And um, there's well, I'll say his name Preston because I asked him if I could use this in our interview today. So a year and
Thank
a
you,
half
Preston.
ago, yeah, him and Brianna were having a house built and everything was going wrong. Like, cupboards weren't lining up with the wall. I don't remember. There was just a whole list in this brand new house and the builders were pushing back on it. And, they were talking about a lawsuit and taking it to court and how much more money it was going to cost. And so I'm like, okay, Preston, like, let's talk. And I don't remember exactly how the conversations at first went, but I just started to tell him, like, use your imagination to imagine things working out differently, imagine things working out better. And I don't remember if we did some affirmations around that, but I'm like, use affirmations to do this thing to change your outcome. And slowly and surely, these things started to change, and they didn't have to go to court, and they moved into their house sooner than they thought they would. And there was still some challenges with it. I mean, these challenges just keep creeping back into our lives, but just changing the way you think about something and using, so your imagination is a higher mental faculty. We have perception, reason, the will, intuition, and imagination. And imagination is extremely powerful. And he started to use that. And he mentioned at some point, he's like, I never realized how much my thinking was causing my results. And I didn't realize how negative I was in what I was thinking. I'm like, yeah, most of us don't. Like the way we're programmed, we have no idea how negative we're being towards ourselves and towards others. And so just that little bit of a change changed his life. Well, it changed his wife's life. And then there's this lady here locally. So I still wasn't sure of myself and my abilities to teach this. So I'm just like, I'm gonna take on a pro bono client and just work with this lady. Like we just so happened to be in this room together for like an hour, and we started talking about all these things. And she's like, I don't know what happened. She's like, usually that office is full of people. There's usually like 4 or 5 other people in there. And she's like, nobody was in that office for 60 minutes. And I'm like, well, yeah, that was for a very good reason. And so we started to meet frequently. And I asked her these same questions. I'm like, what do you want? What do you want to do with your life? What is your purpose? She's like, I don't know. And she started sharing all these things with me. And then she's like, I don't know why I'm sharing these things with you. She's like, I don't even know you. She's like, I don't share anything with anybody. And and I mean, she went from having a poor relationship with her husband to working through that. And then she went on to starting her dream career as a volleyball coach. And she still has a full-time job, but like all these things started to come into her life because she started to think about them differently. And so, I mean, I got probably 2 pages full of stories now that I used to read in the books that I have on my shelf of these things happening to other people. And it's like, okay, like now I trust myself that I can do this because it's a repeatable process. It's by law, and the law is something that happens every time to every person. So it works. Like it 100% works. And I have absolute 100% confidence in the material I teach that it is life changing because it's changed my life and it's changed others' lives.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I love that so much. I'm excited because I want to see some of those other stories. That'd be fun if you put them, if you shared like not all of them, but if you shared a few of them like inside the live here after we're done, that would be amazing.
Okay.
So yeah. Yeah. Do you also then do like journaling with your clients? Like I'm going down to Texas for a business meeting, and in my head, I am getting stressed out like nobody's gonna come, nobody's gonna be at the table of 60 people because we have 60 seats to fill. And I keep on like seeing like emptiness and the table set beautifully and nobody sat around it. And my coach was like, you need to put like in your diary, this is overflowing. Like we have a line outside the door. There wasn't enough seating. The staff was overwhelmed, but it was like the staff's problem because I updated them. You know, and now, so I'm wondering, like, do you teach your clients that on like how to walk through something in a very positive way? Like the airlines will not lose your luggage. You will not lose your pretty party dress.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
And use that many times with my clients and imagining things working out. And so, like you said, right, imagine. I mean, you journal it. So there is a difference. Like, I mean, it's kind of doing the same thing. Some people have a very vivid imagination and they can just imagine everything like it's a movie script. For me, like my imagination's not quite there, but I can journal it. Like I can write it out and then I can see it in my mind's eye. Like that helps me. But through practice, I've become better at my imagination, at seeing things. And I started with colors. Like I just started to do colors more in my imagination. And I was able to now I can build pictures and kind of start to build images and scenes. And so that's, yeah, definitely doing that. And then sometimes when it happens, it's like, well, I was imagining this thing and it didn't happen that way. And it's like, okay, but what's your belief about it? And it's like, well, my belief was that I wasn't good enough and people weren't going to show up. So you do have to change the belief because so I will change this a little bit. We don't get what we want, we get what we believe. And so that is a
Oh.
big difference there too. So we can write our wants down, but if we really don't believe them, we can set a really big goal that's way out there. But if we don't believe it, it's probably not going to happen. So we have to mix that belief in with faith and then take action. And then the belief system starts to change a little bit. So you're always kind of pushing and stretching your belief system with that when you're setting those bigger goals and doing those bigger things, like, you know, having an event and filling the event up. Like it's
For you and a lot of other entrepreneurs, I know for myself, like growth hurts. Like practicing this, like I guess that's like the only thing. Like I'm not the only one that's hurting, right? Like while we're growing, like it kind of hurt, right?
Oh, definitely. Oh, it did. I will. I mean,
Okay.
I got to sleep late last night. Now I was proud of myself because I slept last night. You know, a few years ago, I'd have been laying awake all night worrying about this until it's time to get up and do the thing. But I woke up this morning with a headache. I'm like, come on, why do I have a headache this morning? You know, I'm like, okay, no, it's because I'm anxious about the thing. And when the body's in a state of anxiety, it's in a state of dis-ease, it's not comfortable, then things like headaches manifest and then we don't feel good. So I kept trying to put my body at ease. You know, I kept doing things that would stimulate ease or that would, you know, calm the system down. And it's fine. Like it, you know, by I don't know, 11:30 or whatever, I started to feel better. So that was
And
different
you're
for me. Like, right,
using
I could
your
use the tools that I have, and I was able to show up, and here we are.
oh, now look at you looking all dapper and everything
Well,
on
thanks.
camera and everything is working out so well. Oh my goodness. Friend, I am loving this. And I just, the only word that keeps coming to me is just rich conversation. Oh my goodness. I could do this for like 4 hours. Okay, gratitude. We talked about gratitude and then can we talk about frequency? But then also you and I gratitude a little bit differently. Like when I write out like my gratitude list, I write out things that I am thankful for presently.
Hmm.
But then you and I think we kind of jump into the future too, and we write things out that haven't happened yet that we're grateful for. Can you
Yes,
like break that down and share with us like the meaning behind gratitude, frequency, and the difference?
sure. So as I stated, right, every we're always in a state of vibration. Um, as they say, I think it's feeling is a word that was made up to reflect the state of vibration that we're in. So if you don't feel good, you're in a low vibration. When you're ecstatic or you're full of joy, you're in a high vibration. So when we talk of frequencies, every layer, you know, is one above the other. And have you seen the emotional scale, like
Are you talking about like the
of
sad face or like
emotions?
the hurting face all the way up to like the happy face? Like they
Kind
have
of,
like in
yeah,
the
yeah,
doctors?
yeah, very similar. Where it lists all the emotions, you know, from the lowest to the highest, from like
Yeah.
depression to joy and all of the steps in between that. Like once I started to kind
Yeah.
of study that and learn that, it made sense on a vibrational level, on a frequency level. And so gratitude is a very high frequency. So if we're in a low state and if we can do at least 5 things that we're grateful for, that's going to raise our vibration a little bit. And so that's the importance of waking up every day thankful for something. And I knew this as a child. We're always told that, well, just be thankful for what you have. But I think it kind of came off in a negative way. Like you shouldn't want more, you know, you shouldn't want this other thing because you're not going to be happy when you get that. And there's truth to that. When we get the thing, it doesn't change our joy. Like we're maybe happy for a while, but that disappears. So if we can learn to raise our vibration to gratitude and thankfulness without having the thing, then the thing will show up in our
Uh,
life. So gratitude, why do we do gratitude and how did I start to implement gratitude? So that was in 2020. We got a pad and it had a list of 10 line items. And at the top, it said, I am so happy and grateful now that. And then we were to write down 10 things that we were thankful for. And then after that, we were to set and meditate for 5 minutes and then send love to 2 people that were bothering you. And so that was very different for me, you know, like just kind of stopping to meditate. I mean, I'd always practiced, you know, reading, praying, those things, but never really like truly meditating in a sense around gratitude. So I started to practice that. And our sister-in-law was living with us at the time. And I think I'm okay to say this. I'll run this by her later. And I think she's okay with it. But she was extremely depressed. And she started to do gratitude with us and meditation and then sending love to 2 people that bother you. And within, I don't know, it was like a week and a half, 2 weeks. It was almost like she had done a 180 and she was feeling so much better about life. She was seeing things that, well, she was seeing things every day that she was grateful for. And she was trying to tell her friends about it because she had, friends in that space that were very depressed. And they were just like, they didn't believe her. They thought it was silly. There's no way that that can happen. Well, I heard that from my mentor one time that if you're in a bad mood or if things aren't going your way, if you would just stop and write down 10 things that you're happy and grateful for, that would change your vibration. So I started to pay attention to that. Like when I was just frustrated at the kids or my wife or the house, right? Whatever in my experience, I just be like, I started to notice my thoughts would go down this negative thought process and it wasn't benefiting anything. I'm like, no, like use your training. Think about something you're thankful for. And I just started to practice that more. It would change everything. And so I saw it change in my sister-in-law's life too. And she was just like trying to tell other people about it. And so that like I said, that became a daily practice. We did that probably for a year, almost every day. And so then
Oh
we
my
got
goodness.
busy, right? And we kind of stopped doing it as a group. I formed a text group and we kept it going. I think that group, like it's probably affected at least 50 to 75 people because they've kind of taken the same thing to their families and their friends. And, I've heard all these little stories since then of people incorporating it into their lives. But I felt really silly about it in 2020 because it was so new to me. And I was like, my self-image was so poor. My self-confidence was so low. I didn't want to really tell people outside of my little tiny circle about it because I felt that they were going to think that I was stupid or that I wasn't, like, what are you talking about? But as I've grown and as my self-confidence has changed and I know it works, I'm more open to sharing it. So one of the things that my mentor told me, she's like, okay, do 5 things that you're grateful for now and 5 things that you're grateful for in the future. I couldn't really do those things in the future because it didn't make sense to me at the time. So I kind of started to do them on the side. Like I'd write them down really small, like in my journal, or I'd type them out on my computer, things I was grateful for in the future. Then I started to have conversations, with the mastermind group, the people in my mastermind group, the people that I've done thinking into results with. I started to talk about that more and more. And then I started to do it more openly. And I still struggle with some people because I think their belief system, it may not resonate with it, but I've learned to
Yep.
start doing it. And when I do those, right, when you write down something you're happy and grateful for in the future, you set an intention of those things happening. And when you set an intention, your work is different and your frequency is different. It changes everything about your being. So those things are then more welcome to be attracted to your life, and you'll be met with those things sooner if you can just incorporate gratitude.
Exactly. I also wanted to go back and touch on like when you said in our childhood, oh, you should just be grateful that you have this, like you should just be grateful. And then like they compare you to like other things. Like this one might get some flack. It's gonna be a little cringy. But you should just be grateful for this steak dinner, because it wasn't pizza like our next door neighbors had every Friday night with their family. But my dad, he was a very traditional meat and potato kind of man, and we got burnt out. But he was like, you should just be grateful and all those other kids that are hungry and they don't even know what a good meal is. And then it's like, okay, like you said, like it just like it feels different. So like you said, like growing up, sorry, Dad. Your meals were absolutely delicious, by the way. But we were a child and we wanted pizza, so come on. Um, but like you said, yeah, like growing up, like with the whole gratitude thing, and you're like, okay, but what am I grateful for? And then it feels kind of icky in a way, like when you first start out,
Well,
and
think
like
about it. Yeah, because, as that child at the table, you want pizza, like you want pizza so bad, and you complain about the food, and I find myself doing this with my kids when they complain about something that my wife makes or that I make. I'm like, hey, somebody made you this, like be thankful for it. Well, they're not in a state of thankfulness. So like those are just words, like it doesn't make sense because in their little mind, right? Like they want this other thing so bad that's the frequency that they're vibrating in. And then you're coming at them with like this, right? Like you're like coming at them like, no, you need to be thankful for this thing. You're not thankful when you're saying that, right? Because you're
okay,
coming
so
from a
then
state
okay,
of
this is perfect.
frustration.
So please teach us when we make them a beautiful meal and it's all their favorite food and they're still not happy. Can you give us a tool on the spot? Here we
Yeah,
go,
like,
coach.
well, I've really tried to break it down for my kids, and I've learned to apologize to my kids more. I did with my daughter just last night about something, and I can share that in a little bit. And so with a meal thing, it's just like, okay, look, I'm like, right now we're the ones that choose the meals, and we made this meal for you. And sometimes we let you choose the meal. Like we do that like a couple times a week, be like, okay, kids, what do you want? You know, like we call it a snacky party for supper. And so I remind them, like, sometimes you get to pick the thing that you want to make. But tonight, like somebody is serving you, like somebody made you this thing and put a lot of time and energy into it. And the kids don't understand that. They don't understand time. They don't understand what that means. But if you can have a love in your heart when you explain it, they feel that energy. And there's proof that your thoughts and feelings are reflected to others. Like we talk about this in body talk. It's called mirroring. So like when you're with somebody, right? Like this person here is in a very negative vibration, and this is your kid over here, and you're like rah, 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 you know, like coming at him with something that just sets up like such this negative vibration. You'll see that kid just tense up, and then like nothing goes well with that child for like hours after that because they're like in such a bad mood. But if you can come at it with love and compassion, be like, look, I understand you don't like this thing, maybe you want something different, so on and so forth. Watch how different that child is after that interaction. They may not like the meal still, but their attitude and what they do after that is going to be completely different. So last night, I'll just go candid with this. You know, we've been trying to get our middle child out of pull-ups. She went like, I did a 30-day challenge with her a few months ago. She was dry like 30 days or 30 nights in a row. But then she regressed because I don't know why. I don't know what it was. So I started to get very frustrated at her with just little things. And so last night she was out of pull-ups. I'm like, why didn't you tell mom this morning that you were out of pull-ups, right? And I'm like, so then there was like these consequences and these like things like she wanted to sleep downstairs because she had a fort in the basement. I'm like, nope, you're sleeping in your bedroom. Well, that was still the consequence for the action that had happened. But I took her aside. I'm like, I sat down on the couch with her and like very lovingly just talked to her about the whole thing. I'm like, look, I'm like very proud of you because you've done this before. I know you can do this. You know you can do this. And so like the whole interaction changed. I went from being extremely frustrated and watching her like tense up and almost melt down to having a conversation. Then we spent like 15 minutes on the couch, like laughing and talking about stuff. So it's just like, I'm like, okay, like I need to stop I need to stop reacting to things. And that's everybody's goal is to stop reacting to the situation and respond to it. So when you can learn your state of feeling is a state of vibration, which is a feeling others interact with you, right? It's that mirroring concept. Then you have that awareness, then you can start to slowly change that about yourself.
I just saw like this plaque that you created like above my door or on my wall or whatever as the kids are like getting ready for school. Cause I mean that's really hectic too. This in the
Yeah,
morning, like go, 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 go,
right.
So I just saw you like make like this plaque that said exactly what you just said above the door. And so that way
Nice.
I
Yeah.
could just like read it over and over and over again as I'm sipping on my cup of coffee and just like, yes, children, have a great day today.
Right.
And a totally different frequency instead of feeling like you're shoving them out of the airplane with the parachutes.
Right. And I want to touch on that. Have you heard of the term toxic positivity in the entrepreneur space? You know, like, oh, I'm so tired of people talking about being positive all the time because that's not really how it is. Well, it's not, right? There's the law of polarity. There's a
Right.
negative and a positive. We're not always going to be in a positive vibration. Like it's not possible because it's always an up and a down. But one of the things to realize is when you're in a down state, just to be with it. It's okay. Like it's okay if you're down. It's not going to last forever. And just tell yourself that. And you can catch yourself sooner and you won't stay as long in that lower vibration than if you weren't aware of it. Because so many times we get stuck in a loop, right? Like something happens in the subconscious mind and it sends us right back into that anxiety or depression, whatever that is. So many people that suffer from depression probably, they know what I'm talking about. I've been there. You get stuck there and then you just go in a loop and then you just can't get out of it. But if you can just learn to be aware of it and just say out loud, this is okay, I will feel better. And you can catch yourself. And I feel like I've caught myself now many times. Like where in the past, I would slip into it for months. And then I started to become aware of it. And then I would catch it and it maybe be a couple weeks. And then I catch it sooner the next time and be a couple days. And I feel like now I've been able to catch it within a couple minutes. Like something triggers and I get clenched up, like everything just clenches here. And I'm like, oh, that's a bad vibration. I'm like, okay, let's let it go. Like, let's, like this isn't going to last very long. And then it just goes away. And because of that, a person doesn't get sick as often because that energy, that emotion doesn't get trapped inside. It doesn't get stuck because it can flow freely. So it's hard to do, but with practice, like anything, it can become a habit, and it can just be something you're aware of and something you can do.
I can, because this morning, like I slipped into it, like I hit like a 45-minute funk. Like all of a sudden, like the kids left and it was kind of a rough morning. I felt like absolute crap. And I'm like, great. I'm like, my day is over. And I was like, okay, wait, nope. Like, so I went back into like my gratitude list and I thought of all my clients and I thought about you. And I'm like, I can't let down, like my people and everything. And then I hit like a higher frequency and I was like, you know what, Lord, like, thank you so much for, and I just like went through like the list, like the sunshine. I'm like, I can sit in the sunshine and I can feel it on my skin. And,
Hmm.
so then I also use the five senses. So you're right. Like, whew, depression is a really
Absolutely.
hard one to get out of.
Absolutely.
Um, we're getting close to our time, but like I said, I mean, I could go for 4 hours with this. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you willing and are you able? So
Yeah.
in lesson one of thinking into results, it's called a worthy ideal. So it's goal setting. So we learn the ABCs of goals. An A type goal is something we've done before. We know how to do it. A B type goal is kind of more of a plan. Like, if all these things work out, I'll go do this thing. But it's not very inspiring because one little bump in the road, you're like, I don't really care about it that much. It's fine. I'll just go back to what I was doing before. And then a C type goal is that more of a fantasy. Like, it's something you've always wanted to do. It's like like that little kid that has that desire, and that's all you want. That's all you can think about, but you don't really believe you can do it. So then we learn that we can take like if you think of a triangle, you can take the fantasy, you can turn it into a theory, and when you theorize with it and you're like, okay, like yeah, like I think I could actually do this, and then you do the thing, it becomes a fact. So you want to think about what you really want to do and then think of ways that you can do it. So then the questions you ask yourself, okay, am I willing and am I able? Am I willing to pay the price? Because nothing good comes if you don't pay the price. So then are you able? Yes, I am able. And this comes back to our belief system. We have to believe in the thing, whatever that C type goal is. We do have to believe in it, because if we don't believe in it, we're really not going to do much about it. And like in some of the classes that I've done with Proctor Gallagher, one of the things they've shared is, like people like, oh yeah, well, like I want $1 billion. Okay, like, are you willing to pay the price for that? Because that's not a lot of these things, they don't happen overnight. And that's years and years and years of something that you have to work on that other people really want to buy. And so that's not realistic, like you have to do something realistic within your means. So like you do have to be realistic. Like when I say fantasy, it has to be your fantasy of what you really want to do. So for me, it's doing this right here. It's having this conversation. It's talking about things that uplift us and things that make us better as people and entrepreneurs and serving other people, because all those other little things will come along with it. So if we want the new car, and if we want the new house, and we want the better income, and we want the financial freedom, and we set that C type goal, all those other little things start to come with it as we're serving other people and doing what we're set out to do, doing our purpose.
I love that. And yeah, I've actually been using your two statements a lot, like in my personal life. Like, are you willing and are you able? And that has been amazing. But I did really like your triangle that you did, because I mean, then I was actually able to connect the dots. That was really refreshing. So that was nice. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah. What kind of clients are you, or what kind of clients like have you worked with? And then would be what would be like one of like your favorite clients to move into?
It's a good question. So right now I'd say a majority of them have been entrepreneurs looking, to start a business, like quit their jobs and start a business. And so that's been a handful of those have done that. And then some of my other clients are just, like they have jobs that they necessarily don't love to go to, and they're just dreaming of something bigger. Like they want, like they feel like they want to do something different. They just don't know how to do it. They don't know how to get there. So we're going through the lessons and doing the workbooks together and, coming up with a way. How can you do this? Like how can you do the thing that you've always wanted to do and have the faith that it will work out and you will have the money to pay for it. So you have to generate a need. So before the money shows up, you have to generate a need for that money to show up. So you have to kind of create the thing and then go start doing the thing, and then the money will show up to support it.
That makes sense. Okay, last time that we talked about retirement age, and you got kind of excited when you were talking about that and the different things with the mindset. So can we deep dive into retirement and why that excites you so much?
Yeah, so many times, the past couple of years, I've asked people, like those that, are in a job maybe they don't like, doing something they don't like, and you can just tell by the way they talk about it. And somebody I asked recently, they were just like, "Oh yeah, like I'm, 5 years to retirement. I can't wait." I'm like, "Man, that's quite a ways away." Okay, like, what are you gonna do after you retire? And they're like, "I don't know, probably work." I'm like, "Okay, like, what are you gonna do?" Like, and we just kind of had that conversation, because if you don't have a purpose after retirement, I think, I don't know what the stats on it are, but most people don't live much longer after they retire. Or if two people are in love and the spouse dies, you hear those stories that typically the other person soon after passes away. And so we talked about, like, with the retirement thing, if you don't have a purpose, and this is, so when I saw
There
this
you
the
go.
first time, it just, I don't know. So we use the stick man again for this representation. And when I saw this made a lot of sense to me as to how things work. So on the left, we have the negative. On the right, we have the positive. So let's say that you have this big goal, right? That you've come up with. You come up with a C-type goal. And so on the left, if you don't really understand the laws of your being, the laws of the universe, and you start thinking about this C-type goal, you're going to start, how am I going to get there? So worry and doubt, they register on the conscious mind, and then fear registers on the subconscious mind, and then that sets up a state of anxiety. And what do we do with anxiety? We suppress it. We don't go around sharing our anxiety with other people, right? Like, we bury it down inside. Well, that is constantly suppressed over and over again and left unchecked. That turns into depression, which the body's in a state of dis-ease. And that's something I learned, is to always hyphenate that word dis-ease, because it is something that's not at ease. And then over the course of time, that just turns into disintegration. Well, on the other side of that, we have the positive side, and that's knowledge and understanding. And well, how do we gain that? It's through study. So we want to study ourselves. We want to study the laws of our being. We want to study on how we can do things better and how we can better ourselves. And so through that, when we think of our C-type goal, then we can set up an emotion of faith on the subconscious level. Well, what does that do? That's well-being. And when a body is in well-being, you want, like, when you are excited about something, you want to express that to others. Like, you're excited to run up and share with somebody what you're doing. And then that is all momentum. So that's acceleration. And then the body's at ease. And then that's the basis of creation. So that's just, when I saw this diagram, it clicked and made perfect sense as to why I don't do some things and why I do other things. Because at the basis of everything, it's just ignorance. It's just not knowing. Like, I didn't know how to do what I wanted to do, because I didn't have an understanding of it. And that's when I started to get into self-development. I just started to consume as much as I could, and then I started to apply the things. You can read something and you can agree with it, but if you don't apply it, nothing changes. So I started to start, I started to do affirmations. I started to do all sorts of other things that I've read in self-development books. And then things started to change.
I love that. And yes, I love the whole self-development piece of it, and then also throwing it right at my children. So like they hear this stuff all day. Like, like when I'm editing this and I like make the clips, like I'm like, oh, here, watch this, here, listen to this. And it's been super fun with the kids to have it instilled like in their mind at such a young age. I think it's
Yeah,
just a
because that
beautiful
goes
thing.
right into the subconscious mind.
Yeah. Like
And that's,
I wish
mhm.
that, like my parents, they didn't know, just like your parents
Yeah,
didn't know. I
they didn't
wish
know. You're
that
right.
they knew just the beautifulness that goes into this, you
But we know
know.
now, so that's okay.
We do know now, and now we are going to better the next generation for this. Uh, how long are your courses and how do they get in touch with you? That's what I'm asking.
Okay. So the best, what do I call it? It's curriculum. So I would explain the curriculum as we want to do, like if you're really struggling, starting with your creative process and starting a business and you just don't see how you can make it happen, then that course is going to be 6 months. And so there's 12 lessons. So we would do one lesson for 2 weeks. You do the same lesson over and over again. So lesson one would be like in the morning, you watch lesson one, in the evening, you watch lesson one, and you do that for 2 weeks. And then there's a workbook that comes with it. Each lesson has a workbook. So there's 12 chapters in the workbook with supporting articles. And then I facilitate the lesson once out of those 2 weeks. So, I'll go live for an hour. I'll facilitate the lesson. We'll watch the lesson together and then we'll have a discussion about it. And then we'll answer questions in the workbook. If you've already been in the self-development space, like you feel like you have good momentum, things are working out for you pretty well, then we can do a 6-week course where we just do, or I mean, sorry, a 12-week course where we do one lesson per week.
Okay. I
And
like that. And then
you
what
want to
is
get a
like the
hold
best
of
way to
me,
find you? Would it be like on Facebook or
you can go to my
yeah?
website. It's just my first name and last name. It's markwida.com. And it explains all of the courses and Thinking into Results and a little bit about myself. And then there's a contact me tab and you can schedule a meeting through that.
Perfect. I like that. Yeah, I'll make sure that I also put your website inside the comments and everything and also in the description above. So yes. Friend, this has been so much fun. Is there any one piece of wisdom that you would like to leave us with before we go ahead and sign out? You've already
I would
left us with
say
so much. You
I would say
have.
to go back and touch on get out a piece of paper and write down 10 things that you want for 2024 and just let the ideas flow, whatever that is, and
I'm
just
going to
write.
challenge the viewers. If anybody is brave enough to either share a picture or share your list, I will love that. And I will think of some kind of way to say thank you so much for that. That would be super fun. Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
this has been a lot of fun.
Good. You left us with so many nuggets. I'm so excited to go back and rewatch and, of course, edit.
Well,
So,
thank you.
absolutely. All right, friends. Well, that was a wrap with our friend Mark. And I'm going to go ahead and sign out where I am Amber McCarty with Meticulous Engagements, where it is my business to know your business so I can help share it with the world. All right. Bye, friends.
All right. Bye, Amber. Thank you.
Yeah.